Welcome to Spirit Ninja's Spiritual AF Podcast.
Episode 20.
Yeah, what are we talking about today, Bart?
Oh my God, we're going to have this amazing conversation all about duality, contrast, and also when your life is falling apart and things are hitting the fan, the proverbial shit fan.
Mm-hmm. What do you do? Like,
how do you
when you're just like,
that?
meditation is not my bag, then what do you do? We have some other suggestions to help you out in this episode, so stay tuned.
Listen, it's a good one. It's a good one because, let's be honest, even if things are going nice and smooth now, tomorrow they might not be. You might be dealing with some shit. I don't know.
Way to drop some negativity
life.
In there.
Hashtag life.
All right, stay tuned.
Hey, you just turned into the Spirit Ninja's Spiritual as F*** podcast. The show that aims to inspire, uplift, and questions everything. And now your hosts, Bart Rigel and Holly Emerson.
We did a Facebook Live earlier this week. And in the Facebook Live, we talked about just knowing that in any given moment, you have access to that greater dropped-in space, that space of joy. And that when you're in that space of joy, you know that you're not actually all these external things going on in your life, all the chaos that might be going on in your life and the events going on in your life. But the fact that you are actually this divine peace, divine energy, and in any moment you can connect in with that.
Yeah, and not only that, but just the idea that everything is perfect just the way it is. Mm-hmm. That you don't need to actually do anything. And the spiritual journey, we've all been kind of taught that, there's all these things that you need to do in order to attain in the future.
Enlightenment.
Enlightenment is always in the future, right? Like Buddhist monks have to meditate for ages, and then eventually in many lifetimes, they're going to achieve this state of enlightenment. But the thing is, the reality is we don't actually need to do anything. What we need to do is just relax, let go, and stop holding on to any preconceived ideas of anything. And realize that there is actually perfection in everything.
Exactly. Perfection in the imperfection.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when we were doing that live, we got this question. And the question was, getting into a personal space of joy or understanding the value of knowing we are already complete is challenging, especially when life is tough. I think about when I was in my 20s, living a little less than paycheck to paycheck, having roommates, not eating healthy, crappy job. It was difficult to even manage life versus being enough. It's easier once your life has some sort of semblance of normalcy. My question is, what advice do you or would you give to someone who really doesn't have it together yet? So we thought that would be a really great question to answer and focus the topic of today's podcast around.
Mm-hmm. I think it's an amazing question because, let's be honest, life is crazy, right? There's kids screaming, there's jobs, there's paychecks, there's bills, there's, cars breaking down, there's accidents, there's all this like chaos that is the world. Life.
Yeah. And just like this Catherine commented, when you are in your 20s and you are just literally in that point of learning to keep your head above water, you're learning to be on your own for the first time and deal with life in a whole new way. You don't have, your parents paying the bills for you. You don't have, food 3 times a day that's just given to you. It's life is different. You're kind of in that time in your life, you're thrown into life and everything is like a new challenge, and it can be really tough.
Yeah. And let's not kid ourselves that in our 20s, I mean, that's of course one thing, but majority of people in the world are still struggling on a day-to-day basis, right? Yeah. They still have their anxieties and their depression and all that other stuff, right? Like life just comes at you. And it's easy to say for us, oh, well, there's perfection.
Just drop in and breathe.
Yeah, there's perfection in the imperfection. Now, I think what we have to understand, though, is that there's a difference between the perfection in everything. Like where you are today is completely and totally perfect because that is what your past experiences have led you to. It has brought you to a certain level of understanding. All your experiences have basically made you who you are. So everything up until now has been absolute perfection, right? Even your life today, like in this very exact moment, no matter what it is that you're experiencing, there is perfection in that. You don't need to do anything else. Now, I think what we need to talk about, though, is that going forward, it doesn't have to be like it was in the past, right? So in as much as we need to go through all those things, like the hardships, the suffering, the paying the bill, the stressed out stuff, that doesn't mean that that experience has to be the same going forward.
No.
Right? So that's the difference. We can accept and release judgment about what we've already experienced and what we've gone through, and we have to release the judgment of anything that we've experienced. Because if we hang on to any kind of judgment, oh, it's, this person did this to me, it was so terrible, I did this, or I went through that, this divorce was so shitty. All that does, that judgment, it just essentially just continues on the past into the future. And we're going to keep recreating more of the same scenarios, which when we get there, when we experience them, are still perfect, because eventually you reach a point where you're like, okay, well, I've had enough. It's time to let go and look at something else. And then your life can change from that point.
Yeah, so I'm going to rewind back to when I was in my 20s, and I'm going to talk about what I did when I was in that space of, only making a few $100s a paycheck and living on my own and not knowing any direction in my life and having these big expectations for myself and feeling like, oh my God, am I ever going to make it? Or is life just going to swallow me up? And I remember going to this retreat. It was one of the first retreats. It actually probably was the first retreat I went to. It was by T. Harv Eker. And I remember learning about the law of duality. And so up until that point in my life, I kind of just allowed life to happen and things to come into my life, and I would deal with it then. And I always looked at it through the same lens, like Bart's talking about. You take your past and you put it in front of you, and you don't really focus on the present, and you're just kind of like robotic in this process because it's just become a habit. But I learned about the law of duality, and essentially the law of duality is up, down, left, right, black, white, light, dark, positive, negative.
It's contrast.
Yeah. And so I remember thinking like, oh, that's interesting. So in every moment, there's an opposite that exists. So that means that if I'm feeling stressed out and anxious, there's also the opposite. There's also beauty in this moment. There's also like a positive in this negative. So where was that? So for me, that really resonated with me, and it helped me look at life from a different perspective. So I wasn't focusing at that time. I didn't meditate. I didn't drop in. It was literally that law of duality that really started the ripple for me in my own life. And that's really what allowed me to shift out of focusing on, oh my God, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Is life going to swallow me up whole? Like, what is my next job going to be? Am I going to be able to pay rent at the end of the month? Like all these things. I was able to, with that one thought, okay, shifting, where can I turn my focus so it's actually a supportive feeling, a supportive thought, and change from this past pattern into a more positive future pattern and now pattern. So that's probably my biggest suggestion for anybody who is still looking at their life in that lens and feeling overwhelmed by life and feeling like, you're living paycheck to paycheck, or you don't have things figured out, because none of us do at many points in our life. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, that's always the one thing that I focus on. And even when I'm working with my clients, they're focused on things like, I'm unhappy in my career. I want a new job. And it's just like, okay, like where can you find beauty in that? It's really all about shifting perspective, because, where there is hate, there's love. Mm-hmm. Where there is light, there's dark. And so when you're focused on the dark, it's like, okay, ask yourself, where is the light in this moment? Yeah. And know that it's there. You might not know exactly what it is, but sometimes it just starts with like trusting that it's there.
Yeah. And I think something that we should discuss too is no matter what it is that you're going through right now, your life has happened as a result of your previous thoughts, right? Because it really is a total reflection of the inner. So in every single moment, there is that duality. There is that contrast, right? In every single moment, you can find peace and love and joy just as much as you can find things to hate on.
Despair and yeah.
Yeah. So, you can start shifting your focus in every single present moment, right? So when you do a meditation, when you just take a step back and you go for a walk and just notice how you feel and look at the things that you're essentially grateful for, like the positives in your life, because guaranteed they are there. Now, the more you do that, the more life will keep bringing you opportunities to be grateful for, to experience joy. So your outer world will start shifting in order to bring you more of those things. And then you don't have to necessarily strive or even, look very hard for those things because it's obvious to you.
Yeah, because
right?
what you focus on expands. So where you're feeding your energy, that's what expands.
So at the beginning, when there is chaos, when everything's falling apart, it's hard. I get it. I've been there, right? I've been six figures in debt. I've been through the divorce. I've been through all like the anxiety and pain and depression and all that bullshit. So it's hard in those moments for sure. But when you can just start with one moment, because in one moment, everything can shift. And all of a sudden, your life starts taking on a very different energy, a very different quality. And then going forward, you will start attracting more things to be grateful for and all this stuff. I remember, and I talk about that one moment for me, like sitting on that couch when I didn't know where the hell I was going to pay my rent from. And I didn't know how I was going to like pay for my next meal. And it was like just after my divorce and everything. And I remember just sitting there and I was just so anxious and in so much depression. And I had no idea where to turn. And then in that one moment, I had this thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? If you don't pay your mortgage, are they going to come here and are they going to shoot you? And that's a strange thought. Like, I guess no one's going to come shoot me. So what's the worst that can happen? Right? And in that one moment, I sat on the couch and I did a little meditation. And that's when I started reading the Course in Miracles quite a bit more. And every time I would pick it up, there was a little bit of hope and like a little glimmer of peace. And every time I would do a meditation, I found like a refuge in that. And what's crazy is that my life, my external life, started getting some semblance of normalcy. I ended up getting different jobs. I ended up getting promotions. I ended up paying off all the debt. I never had to worry about the mortgage payments, right? So it's so important. It's so important to find a little bit of space.
Yeah, totally. Space in those moments. For sure. Like, I'm just thinking back to when I lived in this basement suite and I was I was really struggling with life at that time. And it was in those little moments too. But for me, it wasn't meditation or Course in Miracles or anything like that. It was literally, I remember cooking. I remember having like my little section of food because I had a roommate. And so this shelf was mine, that shelf was hers. And I remember having like, my dollar store pots and pans and like couple forks and like Perfect. I didn't even have a whole set. But I remember like cooking like eggs or something. I remember eggs and I remember cooking. I think I cooked like Kraft dinner. And I just remember feeling like for me, I still felt like independent and I still felt proud of myself for being able to buy what I did buy. So it's having that gratitude in that moment. So even though like my world was chaotic, there was still like these little moments that I was like proud of. And those are the moments that like I remember that feeling and I remember focusing on that. And I think for me, it was those moments that really expanded in my life and allowed me to attract more things to be grateful for and brought in more abundance. At the same time, like, man, that was my early 20s, and I still managed to like rack up a whole bunch of debt and like it was a lot of up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that feeling of independence and that feeling of being able to take care of myself is really what got me through. It wasn't anything spiritual. It really wasn't. Like, I was taking those courses at the time, and those showed me how I could shift like the daily moments and have nothing to do with meditation, because maybe some people listening to this like don't even meditate or have no idea what that is because your life is just too chaotic. And so that's my suggestion, is literally, find those little moments. Bart found it through like meditation and Course in Miracles. I found it through cooking food.
Yeah.
And having a roof over my head. Like, they're very different examples, but like it depends on, whichever one resonates with you, because I think both are valid.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what we said at the beginning, right? Everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. And it will lead you to a point where this spiritual growth is inevitable in everybody. At some point, whether it's in this life or the next, if you believe in that kind of thing, you will reach a point where you are going to want to explore something deeper about yourself. It's just like an innate need in every single one of us, right? When we have...
I think what it is, though, I think what the innate need is, because nobody goes into it thinking like, I want to be spiritual. I think people go into it being like, I want more peace.
Exactly.
I want more love.
I want more
meaning. And that ultimately is what... that desire is what puts people on some sort of path, some sort of spiritual desire.
Yeah.
But it's like it's the feeling that people want is what I think draws them inward to discover and have a relationship with more closely who they are at the core.
Yeah. And, it's easy for us to judge other people's paths, right? Because we see it, right? Like, especially for me now, I look back and I went through all this crap that I wish if I could go back, if I could somehow tell myself like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. I mean, I wouldn't have listened, right? I wasn't ready to hear certain things. I wasn't ready to read some weird text. I wasn't ready to meditate on a frequent basis. And if anybody ever told me that when I was younger, I would have said, you're crazy. You're crazy. Don't talk to me. Don't tell me what to do. Because I love doing that. Like, anytime anybody tells me what to do, I'm like, no way, I'm not doing that. Fuck
I'm like
that
too.
So it's easy for us to judge somebody else's path because we don't ultimately want to see anybody hurt, right? We don't want people to go through any crap. But at the same time, and this is something that I'm starting to kind of understand, is I don't want to give any kind of guidance unless I'm asked, unless it's solicited, because everybody has to go through certain experiences to get them to the point where they're ready. They're ready to listen. And this is something that's happening on a much larger scale now, right? Because we see everything that's happening in the world. The way that our systems have been set up are not sustainable. What's happening over the next 5-10 years, there's going to be some turmoil, right? As
there already is.
There already is.
Yeah.
As the old systems, as the old
ideas,
exactly,
belief patterns,
as they fall away, it is going to create some pain and suffering.
Yeah, because there's a lot of resistance.
Yeah, we're seeing that now. Like, how many people are losing their jobs, right? Because technology is taking over. Things are changing very rapidly, right? Humanity isn't adapting as fast as technology is progressing. And on top of that, the way that we've been treating the earth and all this stuff, I mean, it's not sustainable. We know this. We are consuming enough resources for 5 times Earth. So if there was 5 Earths, then we could sustain what we're doing today. But guess what? We only have one. So over the next few years, there is going to be a lot of turmoil, a lot of bullshit that people have to go through, a lot of pain and suffering. But out of that, there's going to be a massive change. And it is going to be into this because it's pushing people through that pain and suffering, people are going to find, okay, I'm ready for something else. I'm ready to look at creating some kind of peace because what I'm dealing with today, I can't handle anymore.
Yeah, I hope people make that choice.
And they will. I mean, some people might not. And then they'll come back and next life they'll have to make that same choice again. Right? But ultimately, everybody has to reach that point. And
see, I agree, but I don't agree.
Go on, do tell.
Well, I mean, I really believe that people, it is their choice. And I do believe that if people just stopped and truly listened inward, people want to find more love and find more peace within themselves. Mm-hmm. I do believe that. But the thing that I don't necessarily believe is I don't think that everybody wants to make that choice because they don't have the awareness yet.
Oh, exactly. They won't.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't know if that will, and I don't mean to sound pessimistic. I hope, and that's why I'm doing this, is because I hope more and more people wake up, and I hope more and more people start asking these deeper questions of themselves. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there is the law of duality, and I do believe that at the end of the day, it's up to people's own choice. You know, because some people are really addicted to their suffering.
Yeah. I mean, let's think about this though. As things change and as technology advances, our lives have changed significantly, right? Mm-hmm. So there is so much more coming at us that we have the opportunity to change and grow a lot more frequently and a lot
100%,
faster.
100%.
So I think we're going to be able to come to a point as a mass scale, on a mass scale, to a point where we do have to basically make that decision because
I think
pain
we're
and suffering
forced to make that decision.
And that's exactly it. We're going to be forced to.
But I don't think people are going to. I don't know what people are going to choose. Is what I'm saying.
Well,
I hope they choose love, and I hope people choose joy. But at the end of the day, I don't know. Yeah. because I'm not saying that what I'm telling is truth. Mm-hmm. It's only my experience, therefore it's my truth. But everybody else has their own truth.
Well, so the thing is, the way that I see it is that we are evolutionary, on an evolution kind of standpoint, we are all meant to evolve into something else. And sooner or later we will. And what's happening now on the planet, if we don't evolve, which we might not, if we don't make that decision as a global consciousness, then we're just going to eradicate ourselves. Because
and see, this goes into a whole other topic in question, because mm-hmm. I know there are believers out there that we've been at this position before. Mm-hmm. Humanity has been at this position before. And at that time, we made the wrong choice.
Yeah.
You know, and then we all hit the reset button. Yeah. And we try again.
So, it could be that. But
it could be, yeah.
What we need to look at, though, is we don't even necessarily need to look at the big scale, right? Because it is all a reflection of our inner. We have to take responsibility for our own lives, our own internal state of being, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're emanating joy and peace and love and all these lovely things, then the world will reflect that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think when you're in this position, this question was, when you're in a situation or point in your life where you're feeling that chaos and feeling that pinch, you just could ask yourself, what can I do to make myself feel more peace right now? How can I shift my perspective?
Mm-hmm. If you're open enough to even asking the question.
Yeah, totally.
Because
totally.
I remember for me, when I was younger, there wasn't even a window of opportunity to get any kind of light in. If you told me anything like that, I would have been like, you're an idiot. I'm out of here.
The law of duality doesn't make sense. Never
you're
would have
stupid.
worked.
I'm out.
But how can you deny the law of duality?
I didn't care. I didn't care because that's just how bullheaded I was. I was like, no, I'm right. You're wrong. Everybody else is an idiot.
Yeah. See, for me, I was always open to spiritual stuff. Mm-hmm. And so angels, guardian angels, spirit, heaven, I was always open to that. And so for me, the concept of positive versus negative light versus dark really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that was probably one of the big catalysts for me that got me through all those years.
And for me, it was the suffering. It was like the bullshit that I needed to go through in order to reach that point where I was like, okay, I have no fucking clue.
I mean, I definitely suffered too.
Yeah.
my 20s and early 30s were not all roses.
Yeah.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like the more that I learn about this whole process, my own personal journey and reflecting back on where I am today versus where I was 5, 10 years ago, never mind last week. I mean, this is like, I have mind-blowing insights on a weekly basis that just change my entire perspective, you know? And now it's like watching it all unfold is just such an interesting process for me. And there's so much more peace, right? There's so much more trust in the unfolding of everything. And I see how perfect all those circumstances were in my life to bring me to this point. And now, I mean, I'm trying on a daily basis to go in and listen to that internal guidance and find that quiet point in my day where the past no longer affects me, the future doesn't affect me, and I can essentially create life from that present moment space. And the more I do that, the more my life just gets better. And I don't have to suffer, and I don't have to worry about stuff, and things don't fall apart. And it's so nice to finally live from that space. Just trusting that we live in a friendly universe, that miracles are natural, that they're meant to happen. Yeah. And it really is, it has to come down to an experience thing. Like it's hard. I mean, I could talk about this all day long, but when your life is falling apart, it's hard to even like connect the dots. Like, well, how is that even possible? You know? But when you experience it, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And it starts small.
Yeah, I was just going to say it starts with baby steps. So honestly, like you could probably take maybe 1% of what we said and just focus on that. Like focus on like the one little thing that resonates with you and like just throw out the rest, you know, and just focus on that. Because yeah, it is something that evolves over time, and it's baby steps and trusting the process too. That's a huge one. But I mean, I'm trying to think when I was in my 20s, like, did I trust the process? Like, I didn't even know what that was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if I had one message to humanity, it would be this. Life is meant to be happy. Life is meant to bring joy and peace and love. The struggle is not real. You know, it's all the positive things, all the things that are light and not so serious. That's real. And that's what the nature of the universe actually is.
Yeah, it's the emotions. It's not things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like the feelings.
Absolutely. And the nature of the universe is friendly, right? And I had this insight the other day when I was doing my meditation, and I just saw how, like, here I am in this like little meat suit, you know, I'm just, you know, trucking around my day, you know, doing my thing. But everywhere around me is universe, consciousness, this big thing that like I don't even know what the hell it is. But it is consciousness itself. I saw this consciousness itself, and it's a friendly, happy, loving, kind of joyful energy, and it wants me to be happy. It wants me to feel love and joy and all these lovely things and peace. And it knows exactly what it is that I want and need in every single moment. What I need to do is just get out of my own freaking way, and it will naturally express itself through me. You know, look at nature. Look at all the perfection that is in every single thing. The expression of art, the expression of the essence of a flower. You know, everything is just growing in this crazy perfection, and it's just growing to express something that's within it, the essence of what consciousness is or whatever. It's an amazing.
It's a really long one message.
Oh God, I just get so juiced on it. I can't. Oh, I love it. I love it. So be happy.
I say be joyful.
Yeah, be joyful. It's not meant to be that serious.
Yeah. So the two messages that I have for this podcast, I'm going to say are really fast, is Law of Duality and the universe wants you to be successful. Those are the two things that got me through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, the universe. I always believe that too, is that the universe was always on my side. Even when I felt like it wasn't, I was like trusting that. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I could go on, but I don't think there's any point because
be happy.
Just
don't be so serious. Even if there's bills to pay, they'll get figured out. You'll figure it out.
Just call the bill company.
Yeah.
The gas company or whoever the bill is from. Just say, you know what? It's fine.
Yeah, totally.
I'm kidding. No
one's going to come and shoot you. It's not that bad. No matter how bad it might seem in that moment, you'll see sooner or later, you'll look back on your life and you'll realize that there is perfection in every.
Focus on the little things.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the little moments that you can control. Shift your perspective.
Oh, I love it.
Anyway.
I'm so chill.
Yeah. Is there anything else you would like to add to answering this question?
That was a long-winded answer to a lovely question.
Yeah, that was a great question, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Super great question. I love that question.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one because it just kind of brings it home.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, so if you want to watch the Facebook Live that we did, that we talk kind of more deeper on where this question came from, it's on our Spirit Ninjas page on Facebook.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on when you're listening to this, if you go to...
It was a Facebook Live. I can tell you the actual date because I have it here.
If you...
January 29th. Well, I thought it would be easy for them to...
Yeah. This is great.
What would you like to say?
Depending on when you're listening to this, it will be linked in our show notes at spiritninjas.com/episode 20.
When we get our website done, which is taking
So if you're listening to this in 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, hopefully it'll be done.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be on our website.
If you're listening to it today, on the date of filming this lovely podcast,
it'll be on our Facebook page.
Exactly.
So anyways, lovely people, thank you so much for listening, watching, wherever you're hearing this from, whether it's on iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube. We are so grateful for you.
Yeah, please subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
It always helps us out.
And we will see you back here next week.
Good times, guys. Thank you
Love
for
you.
listening. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Spirit Ninjas Spiritual as Fuck podcast. Make sure to tune in next time for more deep conversations to uplift, inspire, and blow your mind. Spiritual as fuck.